the reason for the 2-2 test split, even though it's not ideal, was the agreement I had with the previous selection committee when I was discussing my future. Because I had plans to retire immediately after the World Cup, but they wanted me to try and play a bit more test cricket, and this was all I could offer them. And I said that as long as they're okay and the board is okay with that, that I'll be willing to play 4 more test matches. They were okay with that, and I said if they were not to tell me that'll be fine, and that I can then retire after the World Cup. So that's why it's the 2-2 split. Yeah, we would have loved to have won a 50-over World Cup as well. We had 2 chances which we didn't convert. It would have been nice to win a few more test matches away from home. In Australia would have been great to have won in Australia. I remember going to England last time with the team and beating England 1-0 in that series was the best overseas tour I've been on. 2006 we drew 1-1 and won the one days 5-0. That was a great tour. It would have been great to go and win in India as well, a test series. So there are lots of things that could have been, but I think that's the way the game goes. So I mean, there are regrets, but they're not regrets that I can that I'll be thinking about for years and years and being bitter about. I've had a great career. I've really enjoyed everything, even the wins, even the losses, the bad times, the good times. Everything has been very, very. It's been a great experience. Well, to be remembered, I think everyone remembers you differently, and I think when you play, you see yourself in one way. When you've retired, you see yourself slightly better than you probably were, and that's the way cricketers are, I think. I just want to be remembered as who I was, how I played, how I interacted with the team in the dressing room, the experience we've shared together, the wins, the losses, everything. The standout moments have been a lot. The way we performed as a unit in big tournaments. I think that's one thing that we can be very, very proud of. We can go into a big tournament with a really bad track record going in, and really surprise teams, and even sometimes surprise ourselves by how well we play in World Cups. Personally, all the wins we've had, especially away from home, beating Australia for the first time in a one-day series in 2010, T20 World Cup when we won it. All of these have been really standout moments for me. But also, being once Sanat Jayasuriya, Mavanatapattu, Chamindavas, Aravinda, all of these guys left, to have been part of a setup that's produced cricketers like Angelo Matthews, like Lasith Malinga, Upul Taranga, and the one guy who's been outstanding and is never spoken about is Rangana Herath. I mean, he's been an incredible servant of Sri Lankan cricket. To be a part of a setup that's produced cricketers like this, I'm very pleased to have been a part of that. I always say the only thing I really know for sure is the amount of test hundreds I've scored, because whatever format you play, at the end of the day, it's your test capabilities that really allow you to make a mark. So I've enjoyed all of those.
Some innings, please. Get me guys.
I think the first time I went to South Africa and scored 98 in the last test, I had to open the innings in the second innings, and I batted through. That was probably the first time I thought that I could probably play test cricket. So that was special. Scoring my first test 100 here against India. Again, batting with Murali as he was the last man in. That was very, very special. And my 100 at Lords, my 100 against Australia, they've all been very special moments. I think slightly different. There are similarities. I mean, when you take Jayasuriya and Sehwag, they're very similar in the way they go about their business. You have the classical elegance in, of course, Tendulkar, Dravid, and Lakshman. We have the same in Mavan and Mahela. But at the same time, I think our approach is slightly more carefree. Our brand of cricket has been that since 1995. and we've also banked probably a bit more on pace during the times when India was banking a bit more on spin. So it's been a few different approaches to it, but again, it seems to have come full circle where India has a good pace attack as well now, and a different crop of younger batsmen whose attitudes are different, and we are the same. So it'll be interesting to see whether those styles are more similar now than they were before. I used to have this argument with Tilan Samaraveera in the dressing room about who had the best looking forward defense in the Sri Lankan side, and Tilan always told me that I had the ugliest forward defense that he's ever seen in his life. And he said Mahela and Marvin had the nicest. And I always wonder when I watch myself batting, and they say all left-handers are graceful, and I've seen Lara bat, I've seen Upul Taranga in our side, now he's graceful, Thirimana of the younger crop in Sri Lanka, and I always watch myself and I think, back knee bend, head back, playing a cover drive, I always look at myself and I feel like, how can that be stylish? Most of the things I do don't seem to be that elegant, but like I told Tilan, it doesn't matter because I'm at peace with the amount of runs I've scored and the effectiveness of my style. So I don't think you can put me into that classical left-hander mold. But you always search for that when you're playing. You always search for that almost the classic Tendulkar push off the front foot that races for four. So you always spend your career trying to look for that kind of shot and then go back and see, even if you've scored only 4 runs with that shot and you've got out, you still come back and think, oh, that was a good shot. Same with watching Brian Lara. I want to play all the shots that he can, but not many can. So it's been interesting watching myself and listening to people talk about the way I bat, and then actually in my own mind thinking, and being pretty realistic about how I look on the field. I don't know whether I'll term it as the lowest point. It was one of the scariest points, for sure. But I think again it was an experience, especially for the Sri Lankan cricket team. It's hard to say it was timely or anything, but it kind of again put things in perspective. We were a country that had a raging conflict. We've been untouched directly by the war, and then we go to play cricket, which should be the safest environment for us, and then we get attacked. We had injuries, and I think when I saw Tilan Samaraveera come back about a month and a half later and score a Test 100 after being shot through the leg and running the risk of not being able to play again or maybe even dying, that really brought it home to us that being in a situation like that is scary, but the real point is to come out of it and come out stronger. And that is, I think, brought us closer to a larger part of the Sri Lankan public who had experienced that day in and day out in the north and the east.